So I need Erin or someone who can enable screen sharing, please.
Should be able to screen share.
Now, yes,
Okay.
I can.
All right, so we're going to be recording this session just so that we can share it out to everybody else as well. So I'll do a quick introduction. So I'm Diana. I'm one of the Pete's ER docs at Mount Sinai Beth Israel in New York City. And I'm excited to introduce Dr. Azit Misra, who is going to be running our session today on grant writing. So he is an assistant professor of emergency medicine and surgery at the University of Miami Miller's School of Medicine and the assistant director of the pre-hospital and emergency training division of the Gordon Center for Simulation and Innovation in Medical Education. He's done he has many accolades. Just so we can spend more time on the workshop itself. His areas of interest are in healthcare simulation, disaster medicine, resuscitation, faculty development, and medical education research. And he focuses a lot on outcomes and the impact of experimental learning, assessment, and program evaluation in sim-based medical education. So today's lecture is entitled How to Make My Educational Grant Proposal Compelling, which is a modified version from the workshop that he did at IMSH this January. So I'm really excited to have him here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Diana, and I'm so happy to be with you all. And definitely, I'll try my best to cover some of the tips and tricks during this next hour. And we will have this session very interactive. So, guys, whenever you feel like you have any questions, raise your hand or write down in the chat window, and we will definitely cover those things too during my presentation. And can you see my screen? Yeah, thank you. So quickly, let me take you through the agenda here. So right now, introductions, and I'll share my objectives. Then in next 25 minutes, I'll just go over the basics of writing an educational research grant proposal. Then I have some group exercise where we'll just go through the do's and don'ts of a grant proposal, and I'll request you guys to write something about what you think are the good things of writing a grant proposal and what are the things that we should avoid. So those are the things. And then I will share a example grant proposal on my screen, and I'll ask you guys to read it and critique and think what are the things that you like, what are the things that you think can be improved, go over that, and then we can together discuss, and then I will show you the version which we have, which is the correct version, so you can see the difference and things. And then at the end, we'll go through some final tips and summary and any other questions that you have, and I can answer. So that's the whole plan for this next hour. Diana, you already introduced myself, and Eric and Janice, you kind of also introduced myself. So I'm going to skip this, and we're just going to straight through the objectives of this presentation. So what are the things that we want to achieve in this next 1 hour? So I'm just going to summarize the important sections of a health profession education grant proposal, which can apply to any kind of simulation-based education grant proposal, or in general, a medical education grant proposal. So it covers a very broad topic. And then I will explain the do's and don'ts and essential rules of grant writing, and then discuss the reasons for rejection of a research grant proposal. So these are the 3 things that I'm only targeting for the next hour. So let's think about grant proposal ideas. That is one thing that I always want to tell new faculty members or people who are interested in writing grants, that don't wait for things that or some kind of RFP or some kind of announcement that, hey, there is a grant, and then think about ideas. What I want faculty and people, researchers who are interested in writing grants, that always continuously think about your grant proposal ideas, because they do not develop overnight. This is something that you are passionate about, that you want to work on, and you want some support. So this should be already there. This should not come after looking at a announcement, hey, NIH is offering such and so money. There is a foundation which is offering money, and now I should start thinking about ideas and write something. So in a way, the Me Too approach will not work here. So you should have your ideas ready, and then when you see a good proposal, then think about whether your idea match with that funding agency's announcement. And then if you think that everything matches, then maybe you can consider submitting it there. So how you are going to work on your grant proposal ideas? What are the things that can help you? Definitely doing literature reviews help you, having discussions with peers, reading current literature on the topics that can help you, and attending meetings. Like if you are in simulation-based education realm, then going to IMSH, going to SAEM meetings, going to things where you can meet people who are like-minded, who are doing things that you are interested in, and talk with them, network with them, and then they can tell you some ideas, or even just subscribing to some of the social media channels, and then say if something is new, it's coming up, you can always go through that and say, hey, what's new is happening in the world. So definitely all those things will help you cultivate your ideas. And then once the right time and right moment comes, you can think about submitting a proposal. So what are the important pieces of a grant proposal? Think about what are the most important things that you have to think about when you're putting together a grant proposal. So I would say there are like 3 important pieces, and then I will say the grant proposal itself has some more pieces that you have to think of. But the 3 important things that you need to always consider is the letter of intent. That is the first thing that you have to think about. Grant proposal itself, you can see it has different sections that you have to work on when you're putting your proposal together. And definitely your writing style and formatting the proposal. So writing style and formatting itself is a big piece when you're putting your grant proposal together, because a lot of mistakes happen there. And then maybe simple things that we can correct by reviewing and proofreading can help us and save us from a rejection. And I will tell you why later on. So let's talk about letter of intent. What are these? And you may already be aware of letter of intent, but usually in some funding agencies have a 2-step process. What they do, they are actually using letter of intent or a pre-proposal kind of a screening tool. So they want to see like what exactly this person is intending to do and what exactly they're planning. And in that letter of intent, you can write some details about your project or your proposal. And that will be usually your background or problem statement, your methodology, how are you research design, what is your sampling methods, your approach to statistical and qualitative analysis, all those things, but briefly. And then the funds that you are requesting for the project, that should also be a part of that LOI, and details of the team and the expertise, including their qualification and the facility that you will be using to conduct your work, your research for the grant, from the grant money. So why this is important? Think about you are trying to convince someone to even call you for submitting a full proposal. So since this is a screening tool these agencies are using, you have to be very persuasive when you write your LOI, letter of intent. You are trying to sell your idea to someone who is just going to look at this and decide whether I'm even interested in this proposal or not. So this is something that I would rather advise you all, that when you're writing it, make sure you include things which are brief, easy to understand, and explain your proposal in a way that a person who is not an expert in your field can also understand what you're trying to achieve. And definitely the team, the expertise that you have, and having people in your team who have history of receiving grant funding helps you with your LOI. So think about those people that you can include in your team. So that's the first part. Very important thing, especially important when there's a funding agency that is actually asking for a pre-proposal or LOI. Now let's move to the grant proposal itself and its components. So the first thing in the grant proposal is your title and the abstract itself. So what do you want to have your title as? This should reflect the context, who are the participants, and the research design. If you are already working in as a researcher, or you know you have written some manuscript and you have published some manuscript successfully, you know how a title should reflect. A title should tell a story. So this the same method applies here. Work on your title. Do not make it very complicated or long. Just keep it simple. Give the details of who your participant would be, what is your research design, and what's the context. Obviously, as you write your abstract in your normal manuscripts, same way you will write your abstract here, include your problem statement, needs analysis a little bit, research design, methods, and anticipated outcomes. The only thing that you don't have here is your data, but rest of the things are same, and keep it simple. So that's your abstract, and definitely these are the first thing. And another thing that I would say when you're writing your abstract in a proposal, use that opportunity as an elevator speech. So this is like a 250 word or 150 word the idea that you are trying to sell to a reviewer who's going to just look at it. They will look at your title, and then they will look at your abstract. If they're convinced with your abstract, you will actually motivate them to read through your proposal carefully. You're trying to already pursue them with your proposal. So this is what I would say is a kind of thing that helps you market your proposal. So please, when you're writing your abstract, be careful. Include very important information which you feel is really important for your proposal in the abstract, so that the person who is reading it knows what exactly they are going to see in the next 10 pages of your proposal. So this is your selling point, or I call it your elevator speech. Now let's move to the other section, the important sections of proposal. So your background and problem statement, how are you going to draft it? Obviously, use this section to build your project, to basically build the case for your project. So it should be very persuasive. So this is a little different than our normal academic writing. When we write a manuscript, we are more formal, more straight in writing it. Here, you have to be more persuasive. So if you understand what's a persuasive writing style, Google it, read about it, and so that you are trying to convince someone who is even not a person from your field. This might be a person who even will be never reading. You will never be reading your published research after this, but you are trying to convince this person, hey, this is my idea, and this is the problem. There is a gap in the theory and practice, and there needs to be a problem that needs to be addressed. And I am offering you this method or this way to investigate a solution. So this is what you're trying to sell them. And if you are successful, you're getting a chance to get that funding. Think about when you're writing your background problem statement about the timelines, relevance in the field, whether that topic is relevant to the field. Right now, we are in 2024. If you are trying to get a funding on something where it tells simulation-based education helps learners improve their knowledge and skills, probably that is not timely and relevant in 2024. Back in 1980, 1990, 2000, that would have been a good idea. But at this point, something which will convince is that using AI to develop simulation-based scenarios, how that's going to help, that's why I need money. That is something that they will be, yeah, this is new, this is something. So make sure that you are relevant to the time and topic. So that's where it's very important. And definitely it should be important with the mission of the funding agency. So those are the things that think about in your background and problem statement. One of the things that really helps you in your grant writing and in the proposal is the thorough literature review. And this is something is important because that helps to demonstrate the reviewers that you have done a good background work and you are sure that this idea is new, nothing has been done. There is a clear gap in the literature, and that's why you want to do it. So having that is really important. And then it also reduces the chance of proposing studies or questions that are already answered. Think about you are proposing something, and unfortunately, you have a reviewer who has done this background work already, and they see that, first of all, they are not cited in your proposal, and then they already know that, hey, there are 10 works that have been done in this thing, and this person is trying to sell me this whole idea as a new work. So what are the chances of getting that money? Probably none, because they will say, no, this proposal is not new. I have done this work. This is something which is very similar to what I have done previously. So make sure that you go through that pain or process of doing a thorough literature review on your topic, and think of something that is really unanswered, or you are trying to, if that question is answered, maybe you are working on something next to that, although you do not showing the effectiveness of that problem. Okay, so those things. Help communicate the problem using the correct conceptual framework. So in education research, I mean, the thing is that that is really important is making sure that your work is grounded to a theory. So what kind of theories you are using? What is thing that is really helping you to ground your work? Okay, so those are the things. Give some examples. Okay, I'm doing this. So this is my work kind of connects with theory of deliberate practice, or something like that, mastery learning. So that those things, or some other thing. So make sure that you are working through some of the good educational frameworks and which are helping you ground your work. And that should be part of your literature review. So study purpose, goals, and objectives is the next section that you are working on. It should be, obviously, every time we talk about goals and objectives, they should be specific, smart. So make sure that you have those smart objectives here. And then other thing that we have seen in a couple of last years is that, they're looking towards a trend which is more dynamic. So earlier, like 10 years ago, we were having like less effectiveness driven research, and now we are trying to, looking towards discovery driven research. So think about the trend, look at the current trend, what funding agencies are more interested in, what kind of work they are looking at, what kind of research they are more interested in. And this can be changing. This can change again in next 10 years. It's a cyclic thing. So you have to be more, ready to think about what's next, what is in next 5 years that is coming. Adding some data, if you have some work you have already done. So let's say you have done a pilot study of an idea, and you have that data, you have done something in your institution, and the data are supportive to your work. You can add that data in your proposal, because now you want more funding to support that work. So you can add that. But now only drawback to this is if the agency is only funding novel studies or innovations, they might consider this not as novel. So you have to go through the grant administrator, work with them, understand what is the process, whether this funding agency thinks that a pilot study is considered not novel versus a funding agency that thinks that some preliminary data is important because now they know that there is something that is supporting. So these are the things that you have to work with the grant administrator. In your department, you may have a person who can work through this, and they can connect with the grant administrator and get the information for you. So just think about whether the agency wants new thing versus the agency wants something there where they have done some work. So this is important. Then research design and proposals is the next section. Again, it should always be aligned with the objectives and research questions. So make sure that you work through that. Proposals having quantitative methodology should have, obviously, as always, power analysis to support your sample size. So these are the things that you can work with your statistician to help you with when you are putting the proposal together. Use the diagrams, flowcharts, and tables to enhance readability. And I always do that because it also simplifies the words. If I can use some diagrams, some people love some visual things to go through. And then it kind of also saves me writing 500 words to explain my ideas if I can do it with the diagram. So that's important. Now, timelines and deliverables. These are the next section of your proposals. So please develop an easy to read and realistic timelines for the reviewers. sometimes they will see that you have a timeline, but the timeline is not matching to what you are trying to achieve. It is not realistic that you are trying to do a lot of stuff within a very little time, and they will know it because they do this day in and day out. They know exactly what is relevant, what is achievable, and they might decide not to fund that proposal. I use a Gantt chart to enhance the understanding of my timeline. So if you know what a Gantt chart is, please read more about that. And my recommendation is to use it because it also clearly shows how you will do different things in which month. So that's so important. The other thing that we always forget is the unanticipated delays. So what are the common unanticipated delays? IRB, the first thing, if you have a proposal where you really need an IRB approval, definitely. Recruitment of your participants of study. Usually in our educational research, you have students, residents, whoever you are using. I don't see that as a big problem, but if you have a class which is a small class, then you might have to do the project in 2-3 years to get a good number. So that might be a thing that you have to think about. Multi-site studies. So now you're thinking about, okay, you know what? I'm going to work with Asit. I'm going to work with Eric. I'm going to work with Deanna. Like now all 3 institutions need to come together and work on this thing. Okay, IRB and all that stuff. So think about these kind of hoops. So definitely plan for that and I usually do when I put my IRB timeline in my Gantt chart. I will expand that. I will put it in a bigger so that if there is a problem, I can that's my buffer. So I usually expand that IRB clearance thing. So that's what my tip is. And then please include the plan for dissemination of your study results where you are going to present it. So definitely one thing that I start presenting my results is from my institution itself. So local institutional meetings, like a research day. So from there we start, and then we go to SAEM or ASAP or IMSH, and you present it there. And then think about publications. So some journals which you think are the fit for your type of study or your topic, just list that. So we will be presenting it at our local institutional level. We'll be presenting the results in an international meeting. And these are the journals we are targeting to publish the study results. So those are the things that they love to read about that, how you're going to disseminate the results. Budget and justification, very important. I think this is where everything comes to, So reasonable, I would say just keep it reasonable, align with the funding agency's guidelines. What is budget justification? So sometimes you see this word and you are not sure like how much I need to justify each item. So one person can justify as travel cost and just put like $3,000 travel cost. The other person can go ahead and justify line items for that travel cost. So I am doing my flight tickets, my hotel, my per diem expenses, how many people are traveling. So now you have more. So you can justify things by expanding line items and tell them. So I would just go there and justify as much I can, and I will try to be realistic. I will check the cost. I will just not write a figure just on top of my mind. I'll see like, okay, if I'm traveling in January to San Diego, how much the flight ticket is going to cost me versus how much is going to cost me in July. I mean, at least I have some ideas. So just work on that. The more justified it is, the better it looks for the reviewer. The other person who can help you is the grant administrator. So go there, ask them if you are not clear about the cost of things, what are the costs that are covered, what are the costs that are not covered in your from the funding agency. Just get guidelines from them, ask them, talk to them, and they're happy to answer your calls. Their job is to give money, so they are happy if someone is calling them and asking about budgeting and things. So, and they will tell you exactly what is covered, what is not covered, and what you cannot put in your like salaries and things, all that stuff. So you can clarify all that. So, and then your key personnel and grant writing team. That's another thing that is important in your proposal. So how would you find who's the right person for your team? You have to have a team for grant writing. I think the person who is not passionate about your project is not the right person to have in your grant team. If the person is not supporting your idea, I will stay away from that person. I will not keep that person in my team, because usually that person will not give you a lot of input and support. The other thing that I don't want to put in the grants team is any person who's not funded directly by the project. So if this person is not getting any time on FT or anything, any support, funding support, I will stay away from that person in my grant team, because they don't have, let's say there are two types of interest, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. If they lack both, they are not part of my grant team. So, and then please have open discussion and set clear expectation for each team member, how they're going to work and support the project. So this should be done. Think about how we write manuscript. When we develop our authorship team, we have a very clear communication. We know, okay, I'm going to be the first author because I'm doing the most of the work, and this is what my idea, and I'm writing everything. Versus you are the second author, you are doing a lot of help with the research or conduct of the research, data collection and all that, whatever, however you guys do it, but make sure that you have a very clear communication. So that's the other thing. Last part for the components of a grant proposal are the appendices. Please do not rely just on the appendices. They should be only used for supporting some evidences, such as measurement tools or questionnaire that you have developed to collect data. If the page limit allows you to try to include all that in the proposal document itself, rather than using them as appendices. And then other thing that really you should use appendices for is to include the certifications of the team members you have, your org chart, or other things that they usually will ask you, like nonprofit status, all those things. These kind of documents are the right documents to use as appendices. Okay. Anything that has direct impact with the grant proposal, like questionnaires, measurement tools, and things, try to use them in your grant proposal itself. Sometimes you will see that people are using websites, of things. Okay, this is the website. I have done some work. You can go there and look at the results and things. Don't try not to use those things, the links of stuff, because that also kind of generates bias, because once they go to a website, they will know, the reviewers will know who is the person who has submitted. So the blinding will, it will impact the blinding of the proposal. So those are the things that you should keep in mind. So this is all about your grant proposal components. Very briefly, I just told you some of the tips and things that are important when you consider. Other thing is, I'll just give you a little mental break and think about this. Think about page limit. I mean, I just completed a few years ago my master's in med ed. I was writing weekly, all those assignments. The biggest problem I had as a student was to inflate my page limit, to a 3-page proposal thing. So what we did, we increased our font size, made our figure bigger. Oh my God, write longer, tweak line spacing. And now what are we doing when we are putting a grant proposal together? Just the opposite of what we did. Just decrease the size, tweak the line spacing, figure smaller, all that. So this is how our life changed from student to educator who wants money. But anyway, so this was a little thing I found a little funny, I mean, grants are not very, you don't find funny things with when it comes to grant writing and things, but this is the one thing I found really funny. So let's talk about common reasons for rejection. What are the things you think will go against our proposal? And then there are some facts here. Look at the facts. NIH grant award success rate was only 20%. So out of 5 proposals, only 1 was accepted. Bad. NSF was 28%. So 28% in 2022, and this has increased. Let me tell you, if you go back in 2020, that was 20%. So again, this is common and this is global. This is not only US. I have looked in Australian, European, these funding agencies, they have similar kind of numbers. So it's very competitive nowadays. So you have 5 people who have similar thoughts, and they all want that money. So now you're competing against those. So how you will? So what are the things that you can do to avoid the rejection? So that's the first thing is here. Obviously, we should avoid that. Yeah. So plagiarism in the proposal, work not properly cited. So make sure you cite some other person's work properly and give them the credit in your proposal. Not persuasive enough proposal. Need is not established. So your writing style is not able to sell the proposal. The need is not, you are not able to sell the need for your project. Incomplete proposal with missing sections and wrong formatting. Happens. Think about, we are writing a proposal. We have 5 team members who are writing it. And as emergency physicians, nothing against emergency physicians, being myself one. What is common we all find is waiting till the very end. In other words, procrastinate. So yeah. So now you have 5% who just sent like 2 hours before the deadline. You are getting sections from everyone. Will you have time to do all that stuff? You'll see, and you're now pasting everything together. And now you have spacing issues, wrong formatting. You will miss something. So please try to avoid that. Obviously, language issues, spelling mistakes, consistent spelling mistakes, incorrect grammar, inconsistent information and contradiction. So one person wrote something about the project proposal, and then other person wrote something. But what happened here? Lack of consistency. So someone is talking, no, this has not been done before, but the other person wrote in the next paragraph, this was done before. No one read it. No one connected those information together. Now you are contradicting the information. Flow of proposal not logical, and it's always sometimes hard to follow. So clarity of your flow is important. Missing details, how you're going to complete your research. So if there's something, that's where your timeline and things are important. Evaluation plan does not match the objectives. So the assessment and evaluation of the success of your project or proposal is not matching the objectives you have listed in your proposal, like what you're trying to do, and you are not capturing that in your evaluation. This is important. And this has not been done properly. That can end up as a rejection. No alignment with the funding opportunity topic. So there's no alignment with the topic of the funding opportunity. That means they are not interested in that topic, and they say, this is not that we are trying to fund this year, maybe next time. So these are some common reasons for rejection. Some important rules for grant writing: be innovative, be novel, but not too novel. Again, if the funding agency is not really looking at granting funds to a novel idea, then being too novel can go against you. Use your background work and data. So whatever you have done, use it judiciously. Again, depending on whether the funding agency wants that pilot data versus not, so that can help you. Find the funding mechanism, be very specific. So what exactly you want, how much funds you want. Comply with the guidelines. Always, always, always comply with the guidelines. If you are not going through in your proposal, it's a 12-page proposal they want specific formatting guidelines, they want this and that. Please read the RFP document and stick to that document. The rule of C-cube, so concise, clear, and complete. Make sure all the sections are complete. They're clear for someone who is a person who is not exactly, that person doesn't have the niche as you have, but can read your proposal and understand it. That's what you need. Time for internal review is important. Why it is important? Because as I said, if you are waiting for the very end, last day, these kind of mistakes that will happen. If someone who is able to read it 15 days before the last day of submission, they will read it. You can read it. You can ask one of your peers, colleagues to read the proposal and say if they find anything, proofreading, formatting things, issues, clarity, flow of the proposal, all those things. So they can review properly, and then you can, work on that to put things together. Become a grant reviewer yourself. In early career, if you can start reviewing some grants, you will exactly know how these things work. What are the reasons why other reviewers are rejecting the same grant? then you can learn from it and accept and deal the rejection. So it's inevitable. I am going to raise my hand. I've been rejected many times. So I've learned from my mistakes, and that helped me to get successful. So if that happens, okay, that's part of our life. How many times we are nowadays getting rejected with our manuscript submission? I mean, we go next journal, I'm sorry. But we, at some point, with all those peer reviews comments, what happens? We improve our submission, we work on those things, and we get successful. So the same principle work here. So that's it. That's part of our life. Yeah, just we have to learn how to deal with this. Great. So here's what I'm going to do now. Let's work on some stuff. Let's take 10-15 minutes. But before that, what I want you guys to think about, now I have given you so many things about grant writing, tips and tricks. So just think about what are some good common do's and don'ts of writing a grant proposals. You can share a few points. I don't want really you to think everything right now, but think that comes first in your mind and just write something about what you think. What are the important things that you want to have in your grant proposal, the do's and the don'ts? Anything that you feel is, you can share with in the chat window. And then what I will do, I will share a proposal on the screen, and I want you guys to read it. And then, I mean, since we can critique that proposal. So I'll share that proposal for 10 minutes, and then we can, share our thoughts on what you guys think. So Eric has shared some good thoughts over there. Time management, specific aims, strong research team. Agree, all that good. Some good do's and don'ts you have captured, Eric. Janice, completely agree with your thoughts over there. Clear objectives, adequate preparation and review, teamwork with same and clear goals. Exactly. So here's a list of do's and don'ts I'm going to share with you. I'll just read this and you'll see what are the things that, this is a big list, but I'm going to share these slides anyways, so you'll have it. So check if you meet the eligibility requirement. The first thing, even putting all the time on that thing. If your project fits into the budget, that's important. Check for project dates, realistic. Can you achieve those things or deadline? Read the proposal, follow the instructions, make sure your evaluation plan matches objectives, gather information from the funded proposal. So yeah, this is so important. Just go back to that agency, especially Janice, you were telling about a foundation thing, a donor thing. But if there are some foundation like Macy Foundation and these, go and look at what kind of things they have funded in the last couple of years. That will give you a good idea, So that's important. Don'ts. Again, we already covered that. Writing style is not persuasive. You forgot to establish the need for the program. If the agency wants some preliminary data or local data that's not there, that's one of the reasons for rejection. Objectives are not smart, mismatch between the activities and the budget. So that's important. Proposal that is not innovative enough. So those are the things that go against your proposal. So now I'm going to stop the screen share and share another screen. And this is, do you, by any chance, did you have that RFP document that we shared with you? Did you had a chance to go through it? You can open, or if you have it, then I don't have to share that on the screen, but I can briefly share that too if you want me to share it, just to save the time.
Yeah, I reviewed it. I have access to it on my computer.
Thank you. Janice, what about you? You have it? Okay, thank you. Let me stop sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So if you look at that RFP, this is an institutional grant, seed grant proposal. So they wanted 10-page, all those guidelines you can have there. So I'm going to make it a little bigger so that you can read. Just read this quickly and then think about what are the things that you don't like or things that needs improvement. And let me know when you want me to scroll, and I'll keep scrolling. Anything you guys like in the abstract, you don't like, can be anything. You can start critiquing right now. It's just an open session right now. Have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned before, I have a more descriptive title. It looks like we're targeting undergraduate medical curriculum, medical students specifically. It might be interesting to add that into the title so that people know who the target subjects or audience is or are. I know it's just an abstract, but specifics in terms of what maybe included in this curriculum would maybe important. Mention simulation, and then it didn't really mention anything else beyond that specifically.
Yeah. And then look at the
to evaluate how well the program improves a student's ability to perform, but there wasn't really any hard outcome measures in terms of how they're going to quantify or measure improvement. It's just mentioned a survey. I don't know if that's just the basis. I would say if it's just a self-response survey of medical students about how they felt about the program before and after the curricula, maybe not as rigorous as if they actually had some sort of objective measure.
And the research design and things, those things are missing. Some kind of statistics ideas, like something they should be there. So those are missing. And Janice is nodding, so I think she wanted to tell that more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the methodology was not clear. I mean, based on survey, I'm assuming it will be quantitative, but who knows? They might be exploring mixed method. And also, it'd have been kind of helpful. They do measure experiential, like kind of a little bit of conceptual framework they're bringing into the research to frame the medical education and how it's like relevant in terms of it in more like a larger scale method, and then more focus in using simulation and why they want to use that way. So I don't think that's
I agree.
I don't think that's clear.
Yeah, but one thing you can see here, what is going on here? You see,
the formatting is
really
yes. The formatting is off. Someone wrote the abstract and someone wrote the background, and it was the switching at the last moment.
And grammars too.
Yeah. So look at those things, and I think the font is different. Anyways, so this will irritate a reviewer immediately. As soon as they look at it, they will not like it. So I will I mean, this is this background thing if you want to read it, but I want you, in the interest of time, I'm going to just scroll this little bit, and then I would like you to read the rationale a bit, what they want here. I'm just scrolling. I think just make sure I have enough.
Yes, grammar. I don't know if that sentence there is grammatically correct. It's kind of awkward.
Which one?
When I read the first, yeah, because medical school provides students with early clinical experiences, including a full year earlier entry into maybe it makes sense when I read it aloud. It is important that students are prepared with basic clinical skills that will enable them to care for patients in urgent and emergency situations. I guess it flows.
It makes sense, but then I agree with you, Eric. It doesn't flow.
It's really weird, like the flow. You talk about the clarity. The clarity part is like it's like two people with educational background. They're trying to understand the information and they're not sure like what exactly like. And think about a person who is not really has a niche in this and reviewing it. Yeah, I agree with your point
I
there.
like the idea of offering preliminary results from previous work.
Yeah. So yeah.
But they, I don't know if they actually mentions what the outcomes were of that preliminary work. It kind of just describe, like, maybe it's a little bit lower down, but it kind of just described the study.
Yeah, they just kind of very briefly, you see here, mention like, yeah, overall, like, 5-point Likert, I think they are trying to mention more than 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they gave some ideas here, a little bit rationale. Then definitely these are their study questions that they mentioned. But you see here how the formatting is changing, that this is someone else who wrote their study question.
I think there's like some good components here. I just needs to be maybe formatted a little different. They're creating a hypothesis framework. They're mentioning their specific aims, bring a null hypothesis, and we're testing their framework around. They're offering a priori level of significance. Didn't mention if it was one tail or two tail, but
yeah,
if I got this from a resident as a draft of a grant, I'd be pretty pleased. I feel like this needs to be maybe polished up a little bit, but it looks like they have a lot of the important qualities.
Yeah. So, and then definitely they are trying to see the retention and things. So, okay. So this was there, and then the last thing they have is they are going for a higher level Kirkpatrick. So they are looking for change in behavior and application of skills in the clinical environment. So they're aiming not this, but as a reviewer or someone will think if it is realistic or not. So that's what the reviewer will think about. How much time they're going to take. In 6 months, how much a medical student will get, how many opportunities a medical student will get in their clerkship to apply those skills. That's where the question is. So yeah, I mean, those are the things that they will look at. And then they have in their there's their methodology. They have given a figure. You can look at this.
Yeah, I don't see on the timeline here in figure 2 how they're going to address their third project aim, right? I mentioned how it's going to impact their performance in the clinical environment. It kind of stops at 6 months post-test for retention extension of knowledge. I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're actually observing them in the clinical environment based on that figure.
Yeah. And one thing I agree on here is like they're mentioning 3 months. After 3 months, they're going to do an application and change in behavior survey. So they're going to send a survey. But is 3 months enough time? That's the question.
Well, I think they should look at pre-existing literature. I'm not an expert in this, but maybe they have some preliminary work or someone else has looked at clinical skills, maybe a particular clinical skill in education research, and whether or not 3 months, 6 months is an appropriate timeline to evaluate it at.
And what are the skills they are looking for? What are the skills they were specifically asking for? So a good thing would be giving that questionnaire and then, hey, these are the things we'll be asking them at 3 months, whether they were able to apply those skills. It might be backmasking, BBM skills, just simple thing as that. So maybe that they will get enough exposure during clerkship, who knows? But yeah, so those are the things that needed some more clarification, definitely. And then they have all those data analysis plan they have mentioned here. As you can see, they have gone through that whole details of what kind of tests they're going to use. Anything else you guys wanted here in the data analysis plan that it's missing?
Probably a sample size calculation or a sample size estimation. I mean, I don't know if they're just going to be doing a convenience sample, if they have a target sample size. Maybe this was pre-existing. It doesn't seem like that's the case. They can do a power analysis after the fact. If they're doing a quasi-experimental study, I think just a single parametric, non-parametric test is relevant based on the type of variable that they're selecting and the normality of their data. But I would love to see an interrupted time series, maybe a logistic regression analysis, regression analysis, maybe a little bit more rigorous, and they could address some confounders.
That is another thing that they could have done. And then definitely this is part of their anticipated outcomes. I'm just gonna show you what
There
these
was
are
a
the things.
typo. There was a spelling error.
Finally,
It's
Okay.
underlined in red. Spell check.
so yeah. So if you look here, there are things that they have mentioned, but a lot of things what I see again, formatting definitely is off. You see how these are the things that someone else they mentioned here how they are going to disseminate the project. I would have loved more details about it, like what national, like you said, SAM meeting, maybe local level in your institution, something. Those are the things that you start with. So timeline is just this. So this really doesn't give us a lot of information if you look here. But one thing I want you to look at the timeline and tell me what's not good here. Something is not correct.
I'm not too familiar with this, but don't usually grant go by either a calendar or even some type of, like, I don't know, January to June or July to that I don't know.
That usually the grant RFP will say, but I think one of the things I think Eric is trying to count something. He's in the right track.
Yeah, I mean, is it
Okay.
18 months? Is it if it's completed by December 24, is that 17 months? They don't actually say, maybe like specific days would be more of it. I think the Gantt chart would be helpful, even if they just have like a scheduled timeline.
Yeah.
The duration of the project is 18 months. They're not really accounting for any sort of unforeseen issues or delays. I would also be more specific here. I mean, they're saying the whole project's gonna be 18 months, but I'd love to see a breakdown of what's going to happen over that 18-month duration.
Yeah.
To see if it truly is feasible. I typically would do a Gantt chart, write out specific deliverables, and then give an estimated timeline, creating a little bit of like a cushion in terms of how long I would expect it to be. I'd add a little bit of extra time just to I like to say I delivered it ahead of schedule. So
Yes,
I
yes.
kind of inflate the time I expect it to take a little bit longer. So I can say I'm ahead of schedule here.
And a small calculation mistake you can see. So they're calculating 18 months, but if you look at this duration, this is 12 months plus another 10 months. So that's 22 months.
Yeah.
So that's another little, I mean, these are the things that, we are writing in a hurry. I'm talking one of the smaller things. If someone is just looking at your numbers, they will see that this was right in it. And then here's the budget justification thing, which I shared with you to look at. Did you guys found anything you had a chance to look at?
Yeah, I did. My OCD got the best of me, and I actually put those numbers in an Excel sheet. Not only were the total cost on the itemized lines incorrect for a few of the items, but the total sum cost was calculated wrong. It's actually 8,764, not 7,000. So my OCD and my accounting background got the best of me. I decided to check the math, and it didn't check out.
So you are already a reviewer, Eric, I can tell you, because that's what the reviewers will do.
Yeah.
So they will take it to an Excel sheet and put the numbers together. They will do everything to make sure, and because that's a big part of their thing, and someone specially trained in just the budget and numbers will take care of that. So this is so important. And these are simple mistakes, and exactly what happened here was they calculated things differently. Yeah, all these numbers. Sometimes you will see even the numbers are not matching. 4 times 5.
That's what really got me right there. Yeah, I'm like 4 times 5. I've been out of math for a long time. But that's right. 4 times 100.
This is simple math, but that was not working. So yeah, things like 12 times 2, 26. So things like that. But yeah, and then justification here. So again, I would have loved more justification here, like how they're calculating $3,150. Maybe put some numbers also with that, based on average flight cost or things like that. Something, it's a table. You can still, it's not going to change your word limits or things, but having more details are important. So
Yeah, so
Those are the
I
things.
thought maybe the individual like unit cost may have had some sense that they rounded to the nearest dollar, and that's what messed up the total cost calculation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it immediately saw it. And then if you scroll back up on the budget justification,
Yeah.
what really kind of irked me here was a significant cost of this project is related to the delivery of the curriculum supported by the medical school and is not added to the budget of this proposal. If I was reviewing this, I would call it the question, like, do you have those funds secured? Because if we give you the money for these direct costs, but you don't have money to actually pay the medical school or the simulation center, then the project's not going to be able to be completed. You're not going to be able to deliver. That would be a huge red flag for me. So I would want to see in the budget justification or an attachment stating that we have the funds secured for the additional costs, which are not being sought in this grant.
Or if they have an understanding with the center that it is kind of the internal book transfer thing where they don't have to really pay them. So then they need a letter of support from that center that we are taking care of these costs for this project and we are supporting this from the director or whatever person who is leading that institution or that center. So at least something should be there. I completely agree with you. So yeah, looking at that, and we found a lot of things here, and now you have become a reviewer yourself, more or less. So you see, these are the simple mistakes that we make, and definitely things that we can avoid easily by going through things and reviewing the proposal properly, making sure we have enough time to review our proposal. So just some final thoughts, and I'm going to share my screen quickly. You can see my screen. So here are my final tips. What we learned critiquing the proposal, and then we also found some of the important things that. But what are some other things that we have to make sure when we are writing that proposal is, first of all, that it is challenging job. It's not that easy. It's a writing a grant proposal is challenging. It has so many components to take care of. I would suggest please start early and have a team to help you. Just don't wait till the very end. Stick to the format and the grant of the grant proposal. Please make sure that you are following all those guidelines, page limit, font size, font, all those things, spacing issues. These things matter because sometimes they can even use that as a screening. When you are competing for in a proposal or sending your proposal to agency, which has only 20% success rate, everything will count. So have a mentor or colleague to review your proposal early. So just get some honest feedback. And the most important thing is please believe in your proposal, be passionate and realistic about your proposal. That's what you have to believe in your proposal. That's the most important thing. And if you have any kind of question, just dial that number, that grant administrator, have a meeting with them. They are there to help us. They help, and sometimes these people will be happy because they want to give money, but they want to give money to the right person. So they can be helpful. They can clear all your doubts and questions. So these are some important things that you should consider when you're putting that proposal together. So that's it. Yeah, and I always want to quote the thing, it always seems impossible until it's done. So yeah, it's the famous quote from Nelson Mandela. So you will start the journey and it will be done. There might be some hoops, challenges, but everything is possible. So thank you, everyone. I'll acknowledge my colleagues who helped me to put this proposal together. We have presented this one at SSH together. So definitely, I would love to acknowledge them here. Any questions, Eric, Deanna?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
We had another great quote at the end of that by Kevin Garnett, anything is possible, which I think is equally as important as a Nelson Mandela quote. I guess when are we going to collaborate? Let me know. And Mike, you mentioned actually looking to see what grants,